Cześć, żołbody, dydziela.
저번에 라이라
이가.
네 나라
야야.
중에 미 계시던
어딜래
저버들레.
다들 쇼기사 짱배
어제 왔어요. 저 사면한데. 누가도 제가 라인 봐.
어
가장 뒷다에디 짜증 부시도 디 가리 나면 하수 없냐고.
원래
가산 때에 고체 미주도 싶도 저.
고추에 칼리도 라이베
가리면 하고 오는데 보시는 이거 정말 개문다.
아인게 저번에 나시 중아 생겨서
주집 투자해서 맞다
같이 튀게 단단한 리가 니베르 치즈겨 क्या करूं अभी करना पड़ता है ना 신나살 쇼파들 레레 나갈 레게 아마스 신나 저르시다
자무선
저버들레.
타모
건다 꾸지꾸 저버들레.
슬로 기들라다
신나 치마게 여러동데
세모네 세모
튀긴다지 게린친라 하진 미어제
괜찮아 비치 다 다른 희상 서버지 유다 비치 그죠
얘기를 해요
스펠링 거 맞아 타기를 로스치 됐다
드링 생일 술도
지제
길라 치기를 봐 쇼파들 레게라 드링 사 하자를 살락 봐라 너무 들리는데 지금 미니멈 리미트 왜? لا 미니멈 리미트 لا كنت سميك 당자 생길 가시시 친이 그것도 댄슈다 어디 공부하신 줄 써서
알레
수수 공부하셨어 아, 신이 공부 실수. 됐을까? 얘기를 찍다 오다. 我现在对数我找档子，比方我对数的谈的。
집에 먹어버려.
比方给的。
도저히 걔 내용다네. 이제 하고
我去年的的，就那么嘛对数了，其实2年的，我真的。
이제
네.
너
끝나고 봐.
풀어야 쉬울래다. 되게 오래 내주도. 이제 나 결혼 싸워야 되니. 지게 길러라. 됐어. 쇼파들레.
빨리
맞아들레.
그거 들려기로.
얘기라.
조금만 더 됐을 거야.
나서
웹캠 뒤 조금만 더 되겠지.
나의 등에 렌즈랑 사서.
됐을 거야. 이 카퍼네 이용인다.
나서 가지고들라고야. 말래 치. 랩톱 가지 딘딘들라야. 카메라 아지 디자이너 가지고 어디다 클릭 직선을 리. 말래 치. 온다. 동안 뮤지션들로 왜 먹게 돼?
조이드 캠. 이제 통과해. 이렇게 조이드 캠. 진순. Device IP 168.0. 680. Let's see. 228. 19168.0. Yeah. 나 저기 들어오라. 어이. 도시체는 지금 라서 정말 랍스네.
내가 가시했으면도
라서
나서 기라 가만.
라서 가마카시.
나서 가만히 기라.
가만히.
저거 대신 발링이요라. 미 심하게 됩니다. Chigila, lagila, wangmula, ngandubila. Simbayo.
Screen share 찍으라.
원래 심 네가 살아. 저거 어디라. 춘이라 공부슈사, 계산 공부슈사. 인도
Niyama.
요말레스.
Amunledo ha.
아무래도 그래서 길라 나가는데 길라.
여기 두개 네.
Yes. 통통 두개라.
났어. 진이 고추기로. 예. 아니 드링 커리큘러 기시식으로인가? 망포 삼로타스. 아니 눈에 처음에 나 커버고스 고추고래인가 하감스. 얘네양 presentation di 야구두스 인설에 samtong kangin sina diginang karelo kure ngatsu changma pugi kei kola gegen gile kachigore yang kare material development dendra chigora any presentation diginang karelo kure zana dine top 10 myths and misconceptions about language. Dine karelakure sosogi kei yang sosogi chiso jinja yana mimang chewa kei gikola samsu mangpo yoreba yang samsu deso mangchewa dis norgirwa mimang chewa kei gikola kare samsu yana deni 망체와 키 콜라 ngune yomari samsu deso karela shi labna peshi shana chapsi yani yang chito ra a lot of people's ideas about language are really their politics or social coming from this. Any not so gegengi like a che in a young kikukola shimjuk chena in a young karelapuri loptep zona and tikikola not so peyapo shigore kanyin sena dikola samno matangna dene ngatsogi karelopure pukinanga hakomasang yinang if we don't think about these things, if we don't think about language and how we use it, yeah, or how we teach it, or how we create a textbook, then we will accidentally also put these mistaken ideas into our work. Yeah, samsu ditso tsang ngatsogi loptap yinang ngatsogi lopchi nangla yongira neutral japo yongira. It's kind of like a mistake in my opinion. Yeah, so these are just 10 kind of myths or misconceptions. Neutral chu dikinangla yore cake kola lasso any angi chu lamna angi chupa. Spellings can be right or wrong. Dakcha di drik madrik di laptupgiri. Ani di nochori. Jumsen karje. Pishishana not so oh Gonda. Nga lo ni sums ringa Pokemon for Kechashime. And Chitsang this rusty chucks.
Re, kila, you can speak in English
I'll
also.
speak maybe half English sometimes.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
kila.
Mitsangma education gira.
No, kila. Pidgey. No.
Okay. So, for example, if we look at the history of writing, then we see that the standard spellings didn't always exist. People didn't always spell the same way every time. In English, Shakespeare, if you look at Shakespeare's writing, you will see he spells words differently all the time. Even his own name, he spells differently. Shakespeare, Shakespeare, Shakespeare. You will find color and color, both the British and the American version, if you look at the original. And if you see therefore and therefore, thank and thanka, both with and without E, yeah? That's because there were no dictionaries yet, yeah? Before dictionaries, before standardization, before it becomes standard. And you'll find the same in Tibetan. If you look at Dunhuang texts, then you'll find many different spellings for all the different words. For example, I gave the example of the number 20. Nishu. You'll find Genispushu. You'll find Genishu. You'll find Nishu and Nishu and Yishu. Jumsen Karate. Can somebody tell me the reason why? Why is there all these different spellings in old texts?
Just legal.
Tajli.
이 당자 벽에 있는 디디기는
Aha, Tisha.
이 당자 먼저 디 벽에 있는 게 디조 자당기 제법 때문에 인사돼서 포놀로지 되게
Taktarish.
대대 인사돼서
Taktarish. Jatang Ralegira. It depends on the pronunciation. When the beginning of writing, then people are spelling things, how they are pronouncing them in their local dialect, in their local language. Sosogi pake nanga. Jatang. Jigira. So spellings are pronunciations. And standardize it. When we standardize it, then it kind of freezes. So you'll see maybe 100, 200, 300 years, many various spellings. But then somebody decides, oh, we have to choose one. And then it stays the same after that. So for example, in the old Tibetan texts, you'll find all the different nishus. And in the middle text, they decide, oh, nishu, this will be our standard. Chikgir. Oops. And how do we know that this happened? Because we don't have audio recordings. Yeah. But we know it happened because it happens the same in all the different languages, for one. Ke sama chikora. Ani we see in the text over time, we see the changes taking place. Here we see, for example, Ganeshu changing into Nishu, but we don't see Ganesh changing into Ni. So we know the kind of change that's taking place, but we see it different over different words. And then modern languages. Tengsangi Jatang Nangla, Hishishana Bati, Pakistan Nangla, in Ladakh. Ladakh Nangla, Ladakh Skat, Dindre Lapgiore, Nice Lapgiore, Nice Lapgiore. And he Bati Nangla Fchu for number 10. Angichu, Fchu. They still pronounce Bao. Bao Cha Shapyu. They still say Fchu. I just have the video so we can hear. Nice. Oh, Gogi Dige. Kikne. Gogi Insamari. Share audio. Kawazo. Share audio. Share sound. Konda.
Chick,
Gogi Dige. Da.
chick,
Dono.
chick. Nis, nis.
Nice.
Sum, sum. Vji, vji. Ra, ra. Tuk, tuk. Vdun, vdun.
Vudun. Tra. Vudun.
Vget, vget.
Urgiet. Gogi Diga.
Rgu, rgu. Vchu, vchu.
Fuchu. Disapodukura. Tene Pekashe. Pesha. Injike Nanga Kashe yo. De. Knif. Knife. Peshishana Franske Nonga Tsikchikure Kanif Kunginsana Konsogi Kari Linwe Kapsu Knif Lapyure Enjikinanga. So now we still have this word in French, knif. It means like a little knife, because they borrowed when English still used the K sound for knife, knif. And knikt for night. So we also lose this consonant clusters, the same kind of change as in Tibetan, loss of consonant clusters. And in German, modern German, just like in modern Balti, they still say nis or rgyat or fuchu, yeah? In modern German, they still say kni, yeah, for knee. So we know that in English, we also used to say kni and knif and knikt. We'll just listen to a small bit of Old English, Middle English, actually.
But natheless, while ye have team and space, ere that ye further in this tale passe, me thinketh it accordant to reason to tell you all the condition of each of him, so as it seemed may, and which they weren, and of what degree, and eke in what array that they were in, and at a knicht, then will he first begin.
Knicht. This is a very nice reading, but very difficult to understand without lots of practice. So consequences. So the end result. Okay, this one's not important. This one's important. One consequence of this not realizing and only accepting standard language as the proper language. We have linguistic discrimination. We treat other languages unfairly if they don't sound right to us, or if they don't have the characteristics of standard speech. For example, in English, we look down on speakers who are from the mountains. For example, in Appalachia. In English, we look down on speakers, Black English speakers, for the way they speak English. We say things like, oh, it's just slang. We say things like, they just don't know grammar. They're just uneducated. Yeah. What are some dialects that we discriminate against in Tibetan? Tongchungi. Tongchungi-ore. Okay, now. Or the opposite. What is the best Tibetan? Pake. Hugikeyik Sangmane Pake Yakshukarje. Mimangchewa. Mimangchewa. Maybe you don't think it, but most people think it.
이 그나 밖에 나는 벽에 나도네 스탠다드라이즈드 유장기 하석기 하석자들
Arjay.
유주도
Mhm.
젠다디기 유수속이 게임 뭐도 스탠다드라이즈드 타임
Arjay.
하석자들
Lost the dialect for speaking. Sure. Mhm. And for reading and writing?
reading writing Buddhist canon literature 되게 reading subject
Mhm. Arjay. Taktakre. So the feelings you have if you don't speak this or don't read and write this standard forms in linguistics is called linguistic insecurity or linguistic anxiety. So it's feelings of anxiety, self-consciousness, lack of confidence, using your own natural language, maybe not at home, maybe not with your friends, but in certain circumstances. Sure. Or you feel that your natural language is less or not as good as someone else's. Didn't you Yorebe? Dharam Salala Beshishana.
나
So this is the first myth that spellings are right or wrong. In linguistics, we would say that spellings are standard or non-standard, or they can be more or less phonetic. You know, jotangi, they can be more like the pronunciation, or they can be more or less acceptable by different people in different speech communities. But there's not ultimately right or wrong. This only depends on where and when and who was in power when we standardized the language. Okay, myth number 9, reading and writing are essential. ki logyu tona tene lope mangpo. Language first appears maybe 150,000 years ago. 150,000. Boom. I forget how to say in Tibetan. Boom chikdang cheka. Is it boom? 100,000?
100,000.
Yeah, very long time ago. Writing only is invented 3,500 years ago. Sumtom napkya. So language has existed this long, but writing has only existed this much. So most people throughout all human history, memang chewa lok tukimare, chi tukimare. Even today, ki pe mambo yore, ki ngaptong zambuling ng tering tengsang ngaptong ni tegi nonga cheka. About half have a writing system. Half do not have a writing system at all. And even many great thinkers didn't care about literacy. In Western tradition, Socrates very famously thought writing was bad, actually. Socrates kisam tula karilapare de. If men learn how to read, then they'll forget everything. Lotukna deni tsangma jigir. You'll forget everything because you can't. Again, we have the same ideas, yeah? Mimang chewa samsu chi para tene ki jitang yuna tene yakpo yore. And jitang mena jitul mena tene yakpo yamare. If the language has a writing, then it's good. If a language has no writing, then it's bad. You're uneducated if you don't know how to read and write. Huh? So all this depends on is that some people in some situations decided to use reading and writing. But it doesn't really make a language more complicated or less complicated or better or worse. It's just one way of using language. Lasso. Gipa. Urgyatpa. Reading and writing are different from listening and speaking. Logu yanker tona dene texts mangchewa peshishana Bartolomeo Mare any tama. You have to memorize the traditional way. You have to memorize the text to know what it says, and you have to recite it out loud. Huh? Here, peshishana apple labna chirangi sambala karyongiri kushu labna sambala karyori.
Kushu tohdu mau subda.
Sokta ani chichena chichena chowa chichena kari Color, marble.
진도 말보.
Soptada, marble. Like the shape of an apple and the color red and red.
Yeşil.
Apple 용이라. 이 찌랑이 레바라 삼바라 카리어리 sense experience. 그래서 니마타파 on our own experience, natsogi nyamnyo. We experience apples, ani kushu, and we taste them, we eat them, we see them, we buy them. Tomla dro, ani kushu nyo, ani nangla dro, then kushu za, ani kushu yupi nyamnyong la, ani migi. Oh, kushu reis, kushu goe. Oh, kushu di shampoo dus, dendre la piore, mangpora, yankyar. Ani natsugi sampala, di nyamnyong, the representation, mental imagery, yongira. That gets tied, that gets connected. Drawa chagira, nyamnyong de dan, ki, tsikte, kushu, apple, yankyar. Any degi jela, not so true. And like we said earlier, before we said, oh, the writing represents the sounds. The writing represents the sounds. Iksup tetso kare da kariyure jatangi da. It's a symbol of the sounds. Jatangi da. Then we recreate the sounds. That recovers the idea, the nyamnyong, and that recovers, the meaning. That's what a word means. So when we read it goes backwards. We read the sound, I read the sign, and then we recreate the sound, and then that recreates the meaning. Any kongso shimjuk chewe kapsu, dene peshishana kongso lepagi scan chigira kecha chewe kapsu. Any de kapsu de dendro yore. There's areas in your brain that are active when you're using language. There are areas in your brain that are active when you're producing sound from your mouth. Kichishiwe kapsu, lepagi yewa, kari active yore. Ani, chirang lowe kapsu, yeniyanda, gowe kapsu, yeniyanda, kichishiwe kapsu, yeniyanda, kari tiwe kapsu, lepagi yewa, chipak chikan yore. Ani lowe kapsu, chirangi kare lopere. Mipa, your larynx. They put very sensitive equipment on your throat. They can measure that you're actually, even when you read silently, when you're not reading out loud, when you're just reading, this moves, just like if you were talking. Yeah? Kinsa, no? So it's all the same hardware. Your brain, your larynx, the same things are happening, no matter if you're reading, no matter if you're writing, no matter if you're listening, and no matter if you're speaking. It's all using the same parts of your brain and even your throat, your larynx. just like if you were speaking, you are reproducing this. Broca's area. Lebagi yewa the main characters in Broca's. Broca. So what does it mean for learning to read and write? For example, means learning to speak first is important. Sure. Asukia la ngaso kare ngaso gi mikyo mixa yore chikyore lokja tsangmane pugi keiki lokja tsangmane ngaso kotsu kwe kapsu deni lokju teso kecha shegore. Sure. The students have to speak. Chumsen karerezana, they first have to make this connection between the experience and the speech sounds. Otherwise, when they read, Joa di mazona, tene konso lowe kapsu, tene meaning ragi yomare. Kangyensena nyamnyong yomare. Ani nyamnyong da jatang Joa yomare. Joa dimena, tene kare. Jatang dang iksuk Joa yomare. Di, right? Chitang kake peiga chumbo yore. Peiga chumbo yore. Mashi yore. It's the foundation for everything. Di, right? That's all. Half hour. Okay. Languages degrade or deteriorate over time. Tutsu jowa kaps dini ki kare nyam jogiro. Mimang chewa dendre samsu yore. Remare. Over time, language gets worse. Before we showed how language is 150,000 years old. If language gets worse over time, then it's been getting worse for 150,000 years. It makes no sense. How can something get worse for 150,000 years and still exist? How good would it have to be at the beginning? Nonsense. If languages degrade over time. Actually, language is getting more complicated over time. You can look at the average number of words used in any text. Maybe there's a maximum, but there's no minimum. Sabutige. Languages change. Tingunere. Languages change. Gyogyore. Yenyang. Nyamjogi yomari. Yomari. Because they also get more complicated. Sometimes simpler, sometimes the change is simpler, but sometimes the change is more complicated. Peshishana. In English, we've lost case complexity. We used to say hund, hundis, hunda, hundas, hunda, hundum, depending. For hound, dog, ki. In Beowulf, in Seilta Tam Hien, in the hall, in the high hall. But we added sentence structure complexity. Now we have to put the words in a certain order. So it changed, but didn't get simpler. It didn't degrade. Tibetan is also losing case complexity. For example, you find in the texts, Mangpa je, Tindawa je, Depa je, and Ikutsik je. In common speech, though, what do people usually say? No, that chik deja, tulapio mare tida. Any de tero na. Nala ngimpa tegiriba. Nala te tegimindu. Che. We use che in all 3 times. But what's okay? What did we add? What got added? We added, for example, we don't say ch, but we added da. We say chida. We added gi, chegiro, chegire, chepare. Added Indians. This is more complex. This is added complexity. This is harder. We have to say more words. Yeah? Sapudi. Awesome. And the same thing with pronunciations. Jatang. We saw before, like we said, we used to have to say gnispashu. Now we just say nishu. It's easier, yeah? But now there's also tones. For example, you say nga. Jatang chipa mare. Before you could say nga. But there was no tones before. And now there is nga. Harder. Because we lost something, then we need to add something. We change, but the amount of complexity stays the same. Yeah. Okay. The Tibetan English language, the English language, the Tibetan language. Very quick. Idiolect, a variety unique to an individual. Dialect, a variety unique to a region or social group. Language, a variety used by country or larger speech community. So there's no exact place where we can draw a border. Yeah, it's kind of like a sliding scale. Here on the left. When we speak to our friends and our family and our neighbors. Lungpike, pake, kecheshewe kapsu, natsugi nangmi nangla, natsugi chopo nyamdu. Kecheshewe kapsu de gyachigya, pe gyopo shingera, pe lelabo shingera. Dene, natsu lungpa shimpa jona, kale, geek, this kaka chagara. As we go further and further away from our village, our homeland, then we start to find differences more and more, usually, traditionally. The further you move from your home, the harder it is to understand someone. Kale kapo chagira. Peshishanam chirong so changma gyakala chirangi kare kesa kawar chirangi changma
gyakani
gyakar ani mishaba pune kawala
푼도 캄.
kamne
알라.
kadu kadu yongpayen damsala
니도 죽지라.
ani lo katsu
뭐 중니스레다. 중니 죽솜스로.
chuni chuso ani leboy kapsu de mi shempa gotsuye. Did you understand everyone?
근데 계절라임벨.
Kecha leboy kapsu de mi shempa 고추.
맞죠? 그 파육기랑 점는데 거 말하고.
그지? Did you understand other people? 미션밖에 주시고 갑자기 제랑 고추 수생 고추
그게
맛.
팔마제 마제쇼 거래나 다디나냐 타니서도 다 마포티 거 말아. 같이 아또 파일을 비지마다 다지들이야. 분한 건요 미주들이야 도 사바 여러 마음고. 그래서 거 말아.
텐션 쇼키?
भाई क्या हाल किरगिला
아, क्या कर रहे?
या
Awesome. Mutual intelligibility varies across time. Sure. If you read a book that was written yesterday, it's very easy. Sure. If you read a book that was written 20 years ago, a little bit harder. 30 years ago, a little bit harder. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, harder, harder, harder. Sure. Also, samsam dinjayari. Chirang social class. Chikpa yana. Tene pele lapo kogira. Peshishana chokwa. If you're nomad, speak to another nomad. Yeah, you'll easily understand. But if you speak to, I don't know, a lama, maybe it's harder. Or a monk. Or if you're a monk and you didn't come from nomad place, then you won't understand nomad language, huh? So, pull na gyakape chimpongja. Chetan, ke payment boyore. Pa ke payment boyore. So I took a quick look. Shinjuk this cheyin. Any dinjayori. Vocab level and how much it covers. So for King James Bible and the Conjure, it's very similar. Very similar. Okay, got pomari. So there's no such thing as one Tibetan language. There's no such thing as one English language either. Sure. It's spoken differently by different people in different places in different times. Yeah. Mi pemampo yore. Ke pemampo yore. Chetan. Sacha pemampo yore. Hey, lokyu. Lokyu nangla. Lo pemampo yore. Chetan. Kaka yore. Sangma. Mi sangma this kaka yore. Every single person speaks a little differently. Chetan. There's no one thing that's right. No one thing. Some languages are better than others. Lots of people believe this. Sure. Ki kashe mixa yores. Mi pemon po denje samtu yores. Sure. The point is the same. Yeah. Commonalities across languages. Disgyokpo jogere kanyin sana natso dutuman po yamari. There's no way to measure complexity from language to language. All languages have grammar. Keik tsangmala dajo yores. And keik tsangmala tane yores. All languages have vocabulary. Any Ki tamala kariyuri. Mkechishini. Speakers. There's always one way to say it's difficult, one way to say it's easy. Yeah. But there's no one way to say, oh, this language is more important or better than another. Our ideas of the relative complexity or sophistication of languages does not depend on the actual linguistic complexity. What does it depend on? It depends on our politics, our society, what we learned in school, you know, maybe even propaganda, the social prestige. Kita rikpa nanga prestige la pure, prestige. Prestige la na kiti. Mi pemampo kare. They see it as important. Gelchampo yores, they see it as special. Mixa yores, they see it as better or good. Yako yores, yakshu yores. Kekti. But if you really start to investigate, taktu china, tene cake cheek, and cake shimbala. If you try to compare, there's no good reason to say one is better than the other. Myth number 4, Shiba. Myth Shiba. There are real words and words that aren't real words. Words are always borrowed. Language is always changing, right? Language is always changing. Gyorgi. Words are getting borrowed. Words are getting invented. Words are changing. Ki shimbane tanye tik lingiore. Tik sarpasakyan zogiore. Tik gyogire. They're always changing. Okay, examples. Going to, gonna, want to, wanna, finna, fixing to, literally, unlike, emoji, LOL, JK, BTW. Some of these are new. Yeah, this one's borrowed. Emoji is borrowed from Japanese. These are new from texting because some Tibetan examples. Tugu or prugu, but we say pugu. Chura, rewa, dis, toktam, tagas, taling, mota, imchi. Mota from English, motor, yeah. Imchi from Mongolian, imchi. Cha from Chinese. Taling from Hindi. Mela from Hindi. Sorry.
Every year, about 1,000 new words are added to the Oxford English Dictionary. Where do they come from, and how do they make it into our everyday lives? With over 170,000 words currently in use in the English language, it might seem we already have plenty. Yet, as our world changes, new ideas and inventions spring forth, and science progresses, our existing words leave gaps in what we want to express. And we fill those gaps in several ingenious, practical, and occasionally peculiar ways. One way is to absorb a word from another language. English has borrowed so many words over its history that nearly half of its vocabulary comes directly from other languages. Sometimes, this is simply because the thing the word describes was borrowed itself. Rome and France brought legal and religious concepts like altar and jury to medieval England, while trade brought crops and cuisine like Arabic coffee, Italian spaghetti, and Indian curry. But sometimes another language has just the right word for a complex idea or emotion, like naivete, machismo, or schadenfreude. Scientists also use classical languages to name new concepts. Clone, for example, was derived from the ancient Greek word for twig to describe creating a new plant from a piece of the old. And today, the process works both ways, with English lending words like software to languages all over the world. Another popular way to fill a vocabulary gap is by combining existing words that each convey part of the new concept. This can be done by combining two whole words into a compound word, like airport or starfish, or by clipping and blending parts of words together, like spork, brunch, or internet. And unlike borrowings from other languages, these can often be understood the first time you hear them. And sometimes a new word isn't new at all. Obsolete words gain new life by adopting new meanings. Villain originally meant a peasant farmer, but in a twist of aristocratic snobbery, came to mean someone not bound by the knightly code of chivalry, and therefore a bad person. A geek went from being a carnival performer to any strange person, to a specific type of awkward genius. And other times, words come to mean their opposite through irony, metaphor, or misuse. Like when sick or wicked are used to describe something literally amazing. But if words can be formed in all these ways, why do some become mainstream while others fall out of use or never catch on in the first place? Sometimes the answer is simple, as when scientists or companies give an official name to a new discovery or technology. And some countries have language academies to make the decisions. But for the most part, official sources like dictionaries only document current usage. New words don't originate from above, but from ordinary people, spreading words that hit the right combination of useful and catchy. Take the word meme, coined in the 1970s by sociobiologist Richard Dawkins from the ancient Greek for imitation. He used it to describe how ideas and symbols propagate through a culture like genes through a population. With the advent of the internet, the process became directly observable in how jokes and images were popularized at lightning speed. And soon, the word came to refer to a certain kind of image. So meme not only describes how words become part of language, the word is a meme itself. And there's a word for this phenomenon of words that describe themselves: autological. Not all new words are created equal. Some stick around for millennia, some adapt to changing times, and others die off. Some relay information, some interpret it. But the way these words are created and the journey they take to become part of our speech tells us a lot about our world and how we communicate within it.
So, Dine Kate Sama Dendra Yure. The same in every language. Every language does the same thing. Oh, good night. Okay. So what's real or authentic or pure? It's not based on linguistics, but on social, cultural, or political considerations. All languages borrow words. All languages invent new words. All words change pronunciations, and all words change spellings eventually. And if a word sticks around long enough, it becomes part of the language. If it's useful, if it's used, then it's part of the language, yeah? Mi pe mongpo pecha chena. Tene. Bento gyures. Bento gyure. Proper grammar. Again, everyone uses language differently in different places, different age groups, different people, different times. There's no way to point to one and say, this person uses language the right way. This person does it the right way. Sure. Kinsa. What is grammatically correct is very likely the natural variety of those in power. What is grammatically broken are the language varieties spoken by those they rule over. Peishi shana enjike nanga nasukari lapkiore peishi shana inyula inyuki enjike British English kongso kari lapkiore kongso ki Queen's English lapkiore ra Queen's English chumsen kari rezana the Queen is in power. The language the Queen speaks is the best language. Why? Because she's Queen, therefore it's best. Di kei kola mare. Di chapsi. Di chito. Chito ki jumsen. Chapsi ki jumsen. Kei ki jumsen mare. Ra? It's not a reason about language. It's a reason about power, politics, society. Any arigi injike nana peshishana. Cookie Monster be eating cookies. Dendrai gotsusunge. Have you heard someone speak like that before? Cookie Monster be eating cookies.
No.
Dunda karare, what does it mean? It means Cookie Monster
Is eating
What?
cookies.
Imare. It means Cookie Monster eats cookies. Generally. Sagiyore. Like, I eat cookies. No cookies sagiyo. Da, no cookie chig sagiyo. Tichig pamare, ra? Generally, I eat cookies. Cookies sagiyo. Cookie Monster be eating cookies. It's Black English, yeah? But there's no way to say it is a grammar. I mean, sorry. It is a grammar because it is a consistent rule that you can see again and again, and it has a specific meaning. It's just not the standard. Sure? But it is a grammar, just not standard grammar. Daju yuri. Okay. Proper grammar is not about language. It is about defining right and wrong according to those who are in power. So if you look at any language, the standard or the variety that's good or right, it's not going to be the language that poor people speak, for example. Sure. It's going to be the way that rich people speak. It's going to be the way that those with political power speak. Like earlier we said, oh, which Tibetan variety has the prestige? Which Tibetan variety has the power? Lhasa. Jumsen karare zana, kanyen zana. Kare. Capital city. That's the capital city, biggest city. All the trade went through, all the power, all the money, all the influence. Wasn't lasa. It's not coincidence. Draw. Chetan. Translating. Tika chabomari. That's okay. Like a kora. Maybe it's interesting though. Yeah, maybe it's interesting. Okay. So if you ask most people, then they think, oh, you can just change the words and then you just, rearrange and then it's translated. But words aren't literal. They depend on physical contexts, sociocultural context, linguistic context. For example, Bishishana Teni. Oops, the coffee spilled. Bring me a mop. Tendre labna. Karichas. Di. Coffee di. Spilled labna karire.
Poa. Poa. Mau pepa.
Po.
Anyway.
Marpo. Marpopa. Oops, the coffee spilled. Bring me a broom. Sikti chipara, coffee. The coffee spilled. I said the coffee spilled in both sentences, but the meaning of coffee, it's not the same. Yeah? In here, this is liquid coffee. And here, this is coffee beans. So the words depend on how you use them and where, in what context. Netsu. Netsu. Would netsu be a good word for context? Netsu la ra legira. Sula kechashewa kapna kechashena di trotang chipamare. If you speak to a family member, you don't speak the same way as to a elder or to a child. So it depends on a lot of things. And then it depends on your own language as well. If you touch something hot, and mishamba cherang dendra chena dus chena hara NGK nana tikchikyore. Ow. So some words have different coverage in different languages. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Just depends. Keikla radagyore. Netsula radagyore. Chitsokla radagyore. I don't know how to say that. Linguistic context. Any keikla radagyore. So translating is a lot more than just switching words and just switching grammar. Okay, last one. Myth number 1, Angitangpo. We learn languages by studying grammar and memorizing vocabulary. Mipe mampo dendre samto yuri. Ki jongna dene daju jongoris. Dendre samto any tanye pe mampo akogores. Memorize labna kare.
Tujualere. Memorize.
Lunzi.
Lunzi.
Lunsen.
Lunzi.
Many people think that direct instruction and grammar is the best way to language skills. Mi pe mompo denge. Samgi ores, yeneyang, shimju la takchichena dene, denge yomares, denge yomare. How do we learn a language? Denge mena dene chir, not so. Cakes are but kanjas, jungaris. Dene exposure and use. Nyamnyong, jongdarche, practice. Yangia nun, yangia she, yangia nyen she, lok tree, yangia, tentre chena dene. Yongira. You guys can read this later. I'll give you the link. Okay? If you want to. It's too much now. I think we've already gone an hour.
Yes.
It's enough.
Boy.
Lasso? Knowledge, skill. So like if you want to ride a bike, how do you learn to ride a bike? By riding a bike. Yeah.
Yes.
If you sit down and you read about riding bikes, you read a lot of books about riding bikes, and you memorize all the parts of a bike. Oh, this is a wheel. Oh, this is a chain. Oh, this is the handlebars. Oh, this is the seat. You memorize everything about a bike. And will you be able to ride a bike?
No.
No. Sure.
No.
Yeah. Same with language. If you just read and memorize. Pentogyomari. It's something, but it's not learning a language, no? Knowledge versus skill. So okay. If you look at the countries, Singapore. Singapore tests very well. And funnily enough, Japan tests very bad. It's not because Japanese people are stupid. It's not because Japanese people don't spend a lot of time. They do. Everyone in Japan has to learn from very young school age. They study English, but they just use a very bad method. Taplomiyako yomare, Nihon wa. Taplomiyako yomare. Daju jongyore, Nihon wa. Ani memorize be monpo chigyore, lotsen chigyore, ra. Yini ya. Konso yapo. Testing the Nyongwa. It's the lowest testing of all Asia. Lasso ditsars. And if you want to look at this later, I'll give you a link. Here, I made a small link. Stop share. Where's the chat? No, cover. Oh, here. Jogi do. Yeah.
That's all.
Jogi do. Lasso. That's us. Chiwa yorube. Chiwa yube.
그러나 그나 뭐 보시서 안나 그나데 나서 지단 기 장가지 작도 그나 잠내 그나 기 데다지 요레 tena hina je china tana jitso gen chokte chira je la piche ki ji yu so no je do ki pe mo bo do
Keep them over here.
kitan de ki thanga je tan de khandi da je ja yo
Dranga.
de zamne kan ta ki indra ji yo re la ti thanga je tan de khare la shi shan ja yo jerkab la shi shan ja yo wa
Yapo komasun. Can someone translate for me? I didn't understand fully. Dranga? I didn't understand. You mean number of languages?
yes
5,000 about.
the khare la shi shan thanga ja yo
He's asking the number of language. How do you count it? On what basis? How do you count the language? Number of language?
Yeah. I don't think it's exact science. So linguistically speaking, how you count it is how you define a language is through mutual intelligibility. That's a difficult way to say. If I speak to you and you can understand, and you speak to me and I can understand, if we can communicate, go daju che tupna, any keik chipa, then we speak the same language. And at some point, we cannot communicate, then we don't speak the same language. That's supposed to be the definition, but I don't, when they do the count, I don't know if they know exactly. It's not exact because, there's, person to person, it depends on their experience. If I go to Dharamsala, then maybe there's a person there who understands an Amdo person and understands a Kam person and understands an Utsang person. But we still might not say that it's the same language from linguistic point of view, from linguistics point of view. Kita rikpa nanga tene poke la keik ngapchus yore. A linguist would say there's about 50 languages, Tibetan languages. Utsang dialect family, Kam dialect family, Amdo dialect family, Choni dialect family, Balti dialect family, Ladakhi dialect family, Basokwa. 50 total. And same for English. English, there are, I'm forgetting, 20 or 30, I think, languages. 20 or 30 English languages.
This link, I cannot open this link.
You can't open this link.
No.
Access code.
Hold on.
The X.
Okay, try again.
Okay, that's all. After this. No.
저기 되게.
No.
Okay.
That's all.
So. 주하신.
주하신 거 유배 길러 넘버 2.
맨도.
주하세요 자.
알았어.
연습 길라. 투제나.
알았어, 티치지.
투제나 길라.
맞아요.
나서 제랑 같이.
내가 트위와 연한데니. 나라 이기 직통.
라스. 네. 제나 길라.
Kerala China
Yeah.
그래. 1년 기록이.
Gela Jigre. Can I ask a question to personal?
Yeah.
알리 얘기 된다. 디테일. 나서.
Also,
Needless like it. 라이래 돈달래 코라 티버티드라 코라
Lapta.
말이길라
그게
게 더글라 제니 기지 티워요 바이나 아니 게라 쿠나 디르 웰레스 he can message like personal if you have any question 게지 치아웃 여기 신지 알아 땡 tuju나 네 기지 라이라 기란 티워이나 근데 게더 게 지메일 코र्स chat 나오다
오케이. 그지
tuju나
Asala.
젤라제용
Cheyaji.
tuju나
응.
그래서 나게 그거를 비워지더라. 그걸 가슴 뒤지 쪽으로시.
저가 얘 걔는 지길래서 오래서
일린기로 얘기 뒤에 가시오. 이유 이제 원래더라. 그래서 아니 길라 넘버 2 파싱. 그림 파싱도. 아니 샤시. 라 나디 구드 차라 추구래. 나 까마 주스. 까마 구스.
The next gala jiyora yangya.
게라 질리 페이레. 나서 뭐로
맞았어.
그래서
Is gala shedo yomare thingsa. God.
신년배 시간이
Gosh, thingsa sheda yimda. Pinje dijela gala supi ngoma pesa kyo pira.
제 길롭상 라피스
Kenopsang la na sura.
김내랑은 좀 뒤침바 시에 벌걸 셴바
Gala kushola de.
구시나 말이야
Ne,
셴바데
andida. Hoy mas.
종가 미지 고에 시가 당기네 요
Le. Tangshu ni kare dich chingedira.